Hello, Gaston County. That's a little loud, Naomi. Louder than normal. Welcome to episode number 90 of Gaston's Great, a podcast that continues to highlight some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. As you've heard before, we simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We have another great organization this week as we highlight the Special Needs Community Initiative. We have just Josette Duncan with us today, who is the president of the organization. Josette, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to get right to it. So if you don't mind, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you'd like to share, then we'll get into the organization.
All right. So I am a mother of two adult children. Young adults.
Understood.
Young adults.
I'm the same.
And they are my reason for doing everything I do.
Okay.
So my youngest son, Nathan, is 27, and he has Down syndrome.
Okay.
And I have an older son, Stefan, who's just turned 30 this past week. So, yeah, feeling the age.
Yeah, well, I understand. Yeah, mine are 24, 21, and 22 as of yesterday, and 17. So I feel you with the age there.
There's something about him being 30 that just kind of threw me for a loop. I was like, oh my God, I have a 30-year-old.
I remember turning 30 like 800 years ago. Naomi, you're not 30 yet, are you?
Oh, she's a baby.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, so I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I've been doing that for almost 25 years.
Oh, okay.
Been working for the same company for 20 years. It's called the Electric Power Research Institute.
Okay.
So I've been with them 20 years, off and on as a contractor or an employee. Right now, I'm back as an employee, so
okay.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, very good.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that. So, as I mentioned already, we're talking about Special Needs Community Initiative. So there's probably some people who may have heard of that, or maybe some of the things that you've done. But just tell us what's the mission of the organization, what it's all about, and then maybe even your role with the organization.
Right. Okay. So the Special Needs Community Initiative is a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3, and we are on a mission to create and to sustain co-housing communities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, so that they can live independently in a safe environment with opportunities for personal growth. So that's our mission.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're familiar with co-housing. So
I'm not personally.
Okay. All right. So co-housing is a model neighborhood. It's an intentional community where people come together. They decide to live together in a close proximity.
Okay.
But they also have the intention of having shared spaces, shared experiences. So these communities are surrounded by a common house, what they call a common house.
Okay.
And the common house is kind of like a recreational building, an activity building, where it would have a large kitchen, dining area, like a living space, spaces for activities, that kind of thing. And so that would be like the hub of the community.
Okay.
And people will gather there. They'll have shared meals. They'll have planned activities, that kind of thing. And so when my son graduated high school, when you're a special needs parent, you spend a lot of time thinking about the day-to-day, the what's next.
Right.
Years down the road doesn't really hit you until they're
years
18.
down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, until they're graduating high school, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? And then you start thinking, oh gosh, I have to plan for the next 40 to 50 years of his life, and so you start kind of panicking, and that's what I did. I panicked. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
Is it fair to say that you get to that point and then the structure, what's been just the day-to-day changes completely, or you no longer have that day-to-day school or whatever it might be,
right?
And something, something's getting ready to dramatically change,
right? Because
and it's unknown. Is that fair?
It's unknown, and
Okay.
when you are in the school system, they kind of package everything in this nice little package where they have the therapist come and see him at the school, and he's getting all of his needs met through the school system. When they graduate high school, it's up to the parents to figure all that out, and there's some great organizations that have some day programs. There's some, there's a lot of services that are provided for them, but it's the bare minimum. I mean, it's not enough, and so what we find as parents is that our kids end up with a lot of time on their hands and without the ability to work as much as they can because it affects their government assistance programs. So, they have all these limitations about what they can do, what they can't do, how much they can earn. And so those limitations cause them to be unable to live independently, not just because financially, but also it's a safety risk,
Okay.
So when he graduated and I started trying to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to fill his day? And I started talking to other parents, and I was like, how do you do it? And what are you doing? And who do you go to for services, And so in those conversations, we all started talking about, well, wouldn't it be great if we could do this, So the problem in adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities is that they have a lot of time on their hands, but not enough things to fill that time.
Gotcha.
To fill that time, parents have to figure it out. They have to be able to provide the transportation. They have to be able to make the connections with other organizations or other, activities.
Things that I take for granted.
Exactly, yeah. And we are also taking away their ability to make choices for themselves. So we as parents have to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to keep you busy, all day? So we sign them up for this and we sign them up for that. And they just go where we tell them to go. They don't, yes, they do have a voice in saying,
sure,
I don't want to do that. But it's also a necessity for a parent to be able to say, okay, well, I need you to be doing something while I'm working.
Right.
Or, and so in those conversations with parents, we just started talking about what would it look like if they could live independently, if they had the services and the support that they needed to be able to do that, and what would be our role in their lives once, something like that came about. And at the same time, I was learning about this co-housing model, and I thought, why couldn't we use this? So this housing model has been used also to help veterans, homeless, seniors are using this model to have an alternative to assisted living. And so I was like, well, why couldn't we use it for the special needs community as well? And so in all those conversations, we came up with the idea of creating a co-housing community for our individuals. And then we formed the nonprofit.
How long ago was that? What's the timeline here, if you don't mind me asking?
No, so the first meeting we had was just kind of an information like, hey, we have this idea. What do you guys think? It was in December 2017.
Okay.
We got our nonprofit status in March of 2019.
Okay.
And that was a process because we had to come up with everything that we wanted this to be. We had to figure out, okay, well, what was this going to look like? What do our kids need? And so in those 2 years, we were talking to parents, talking to individuals, trying to figure out what services they would need to be able to live like this independently. And so we've talked to hundreds of parents and young adults trying to figure out, okay, well, what are your needs and what are your wants? How would the perfect life look for you? And in all those conversations, we came up with our organization and our vision and our mission.
Okay. All right. So that's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, so you became involved with your own personal experience, right? And trying to, and I think over 90 episodes now, so many of the initiatives that we've shared and met and we've talked about, it's either an individual or a group like you're talking about who asked some questions and saw a need and said, okay, why not us? Why can't we go solve this?
Exactly.
This issue or problem. I'm not sure that's the right way to describe it.
Yeah.
So is that a fair assessment of how you and maybe this group that you're of other families, that's kind of how it happened? Is that a fair description?
Yeah. And you'll find that in our special needs community, there's a lot of parents who see a need and they start doing something about it.
Yeah.
They try to figure out the problem because, we can't rely on what's out there. It's not enough. Our young adults are kind of left, by the wayside. They're not a priority in many in the services that they're.
There's a lot of. It seems like over our time we've had organizations on. We've had the Arc of Gaston County on. We've had, and then we brought Sarah back to talk about specifically about Camp Kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
We've had the Special Olympics on. We've had, and a lot of that does seem more focused on children. Yeah. When they're and when they get to adults, it almost feels like good luck. I'm exaggerating a little bit to make a point, but it does kind of.
But that's how it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how a lot of parents feel. It's almost like, okay, well, what do we do now? How do we fix this? And Nathan is involved in Special Olympics, and
okay.
he went to Camp Kaleidoscope the very first year that it was open. And then he is part of the Carolina Fireflies baseball team.
Okay, we haven't. That's a secret, but that episode's coming up when? Were they last week? Yeah, we had them. They're on, so they're be in a couple weeks. So the week before this episode airs, so is when they'll be on.
Yeah,
so that was great.
And then
so that one, I like that one because to your point, it's focused on more on adults, right?
Exactly.
That organization.
Yeah, and Nathan works. Nathan and I both work for Aaron's Good Girl Dog Treats, which is another organization.
And they're coming on in a few weeks.
They are. Yeah.
You're stepping on everything.
I know. So.
The secret's out.
Yeah. We're just so intertwined.
Well, I would assume, over the time, you probably see a lot of the same parents, right, and families, interacting. Okay.
Yeah, and you see, there's so many of us parents who are involved. So, you said Special Olympics. So Ashley is, so great with our kids, but then each team, each group that is, or each activity, each sport has a group of parents that are very involved in that sport or this sport or that, and so like we all just kind of, come together and we, figure out ways that we can help, because it is a community. It's,
right.
So, we're always trying to figure out, okay, well, what can I do to help?
All right. So let's talk about, if we can. So March of 2019 is when you achieved the nonprofit status.
Right.
So that's a little over, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So tell me what's been going on since then, initiatives, just, generally the activity or the question I kind of like to phrase it is the day in the life or the month in the life of the organization.
Yeah. So we were doing really great because we had just started. So we have a program called Learn, Work, and Play.
Okay.
So in the meantime, before the community is built, we wanted to create a community of people, and we also want them to be able to start creating those connections, and so we created the Learn, Work, and Play program where we want them to have opportunities for education, vocational opportunities, and also recreational opportunities. So we had just started that program, and then something happened.
A year after you got your 501c3.
This thing called COVID.
Yeah, we don't like to say that word.
I don't either.
Yeah, but I saw the March 2019 date, I thought, boy, a year later.
Yeah, it was, and that just kind of put a standstill to everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no fundraising going on, no gatherings.
Just
nothing.
a crazy,
and
weird time for everybody.
It was, and even
especially for nonprofit organizations.
For nonprofit organizations, you can't go and ask people for money when they're struggling themselves.
No events,
no events, no gatherings, and especially in our community where we have individuals who are higher risk,
susceptible. Yep. High risk.
So we had to be super careful, and so we just didn't do anything. We had a few online things, but that's hard for our kids also. It was hard for them to make the connection through a screen,
Yeah.
And so so thankfully, things are starting to get back to normal, and we've started doing our workshops. So every August we do an independent living workshop, and it's a 5-week program. And the first year we did, and this was in conjunction with No Limits Counseling with Michelle Maddox.
Okay.
And she's a counselor and she works with our individuals, and she does a great job. So she did the Circles program. So the Circles program was it's a therapy group, and what they do is they take a circle concept of the relationships you have in your life. So you start out with your middle circle, which is your purple circle, and that's you, and it's all about you and your likes, and what is it about you that makes you you. Okay, so then you have your blue circle that's next to your purple circle, and this your family, your parents, your siblings. Those are the people that you are most connected to. Those are the people that you trust the most, the people that you can hug and kiss and be more affectionate with, and then there's things that, and each circle has like boundaries or things that are acceptable and not acceptable. From there, you go to your green circle, which is your friends, your sweethearts, people that you have more another connection with, but there's there's boundaries with those friendships, and so maybe you give a high five to your friend or a handshake, or you can hug your friends, that kind of thing. And then from there, you go on to your orange circle, and those are people who are acquaintances, people that are of them, but maybe you don't really know them. You don't consider them a friend. You're still having some. You have to have some reservations about people, and a greeting is a handshake or hello, how are you, or And so this whole workshop, and all the way to your your red circle, which are your strangers and your people that you don't know at all, people that you can't say they're your friend because you've not met them, and how do you go from one circle to another, so how do you move in from your, acquaintance circle to your friend circle, and so it put a visual to those relationships, and each relationship had a do's and don'ts, so that was our first workshop. Last year we did a workshop on because in that workshop they had a lot of questions about friends and dating and how do you get a girlfriend and how do that kind of thing. So we focused on that one last year where we did a friendships and dating workshop, and that was fun. And so they talked strictly about, okay, well, what's a good friend? What is not a good friend? What does a good friend do?
Yeah.
How do you talk to your friends? Or and then the same with your sweethearts. Or how do you ask a girl out on a date? Or how do you and all of those things that they have so many questions on.
Yeah.
So that was our workshop last year, and this year we're doing independent living workshop, mostly based on safety. So we're going to be talking about, okay, if you live on your own, what are some of the things that you need to think about if you're in your kitchen? Who do you call for an emergency? It's kind of taking some of those things that we all know how to do on our own that they need instructions for. They need to be able to understand, why is it that you don't call 911? Because like my son did, who there's some kids riding their four-wheelers up and down our street, and it was like 10 o'clock at night or something, and he called the police.
Well, that could be annoying, loud and annoying.
It was, but it wasn't an emergency. It was, and they couldn't understand what was happening, so they sent an officer to the house just
as
in
I've gotten
case.
older, though, the things that irritate me now were not things that irritated me when I was younger, though.
And
I might be the old man in the neighborhood who calls people out now.
Yeah, well, he's that old man. So.
I feel that, though. I understand.
But those are things that we don't think about.
Sure.
That he knew to call someone for help. And we weren't doing enough, and so he went to the next
some
step.
initiative.
Yeah, he did.
Wait, listen, I'm all about initiative.
Yeah. So we have our workshops, and then we do some gatherings. Just in March when the movie Champions came out. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
With Woody Harrelson?
Woody Harrelson.
Yep.
We did a partnership with Special Olympics of Gaston County and the Arc of Gaston
I think I saw
County.
some of that on the website, or like the events,
Yeah, so we had, we rented out a whole theater, and
that's cool.
they Regal Cinema was just amazing, and they let us fill the whole cinema up, and we had over 100 people come and watch the movie together, and so that was a great experience.
So like a workshop like the ones you just described, I mean, how many typical people are involved, or, is that a fair question?
Yeah, we try to keep it to about, 15 people. Just, the smaller the group, the easier it is to manage, and the more we can cover with them. But so we have the workshops, we do activities, we are going to have a kickball game in September, and then March we had our second annual 5K, which is our fundraiser. It's the Raise the Roof 5K. And it's
I saw that phrase a lot on the website.
Yeah, so we have our Raise the Roof fundraisers.
Okay.
So we have Raise the Roof 5K and Raise the Roof Dance. And the dance is coming up in October 14th. And it's a dance and a silent auction for anybody in the community, families, It's a family-friendly event. And so we get donations from area businesses and attractions like the zoo and
Was it
things
that
like
event, or was something else I saw that was at Southminster
Yes, it was.
Presbyterian
Yes,
Church?
yes. Southminster is where we hold the dance
Okay.
every year, and they've been amazing. You know, they
My mother happens to be a member there.
Oh, wonderful!
yeah.
Yeah, and they're so great with our community because they do the Night to Shine,
Yep. Uh-huh.
and so
Yeah, my daughter volunteered at that this past year.
That's
My
wonderful.
high schooler.
Yeah, yeah. So they're they're a great church, and they let us use their gym and for the dance, and that's coming up October 14th.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure we repeat some of this before we finish up as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yeah.
so kind of, so is that fair to say what you just described? If things are past COVID,
Yes.
that's a typical kind of things you've got going on throughout a normal year.
Right. Those are the things that we do to provide a service for
Gotcha.
our individuals, and then to try to raise some money. But this year, I think we're mainly focused on trying to start the because we had to raise some money in order to be able to get the services and to
Okay.
hire the people that we need to be able to start the planning process for the community. So we are looking for land.
Okay.
We need about 10 to 15 acres, something like that. We're trying to find people who can serve on our board that have that experience,
Right.
Real estate agents or builders, people in the developer field. Those are the people that we need in order to get the right information so that we can start.
I know we
the
have some
building
real estate
process.
agents and builders and people in the know who are listening right now.
Yeah.
So if you heard that, you might that might be an opportunity
We'd
here.
love to have you.
So I guess the next question I kind of like to ask is, looking ahead. So the big thing is, right, the first thing you talked about, right, was the co-housing.
Yes.
I mean, is that fair to say that's the ultimate goal?
That's the goal.
Okay.
Right now, the goal is to hopefully get this done within the next 5 years.
Okay.
We have a lot of money to raise and a lot of work to do, but I really think that if we could make this neighborhood, this community happen, it could be a game changer for not just our community in Gaston County, but also for so many communities.
Are there any communities, North Carolina or around, that have successfully done this already, or are you setting the pace here?
Not that I know. I know that there's people that buy houses, and then they have some individuals, kind of
Just
like a
smaller,
group home. Yeah,
a group more a home than
yeah.
a community,
right.
Or a
And I think there probably are some. I think there's a community or an organization that's based out of Seattle. It's called We Built.
okay.
And they're, I think, in the process of building something in Wilkesboro. And so I think there's more people that have this idea that co-housing is a good model and a solution to, the special needs community housing issue. And I think where we are different from some of the places that are available now is that we want this to be, we want them to live within their means. So if they come to us and they say, well, I get Social Security income and I have a little job and it brings me, $500 a month. So my total income is, let's say $1,200 a month. That's all the money they get. We want to use the low-income housing model as how they would pay for their living expenses. So the low-income housing model is 30% of your total income is what you pay toward your housing. And there's other places where our kids could go live. The issue is that they cost a lot of money. Some of the ones that I've looked into is like, for $30,000 a year, your child can go live on this farm and have this amazing life, but it's $30,000 a year. and what happens when mom and dad can't pay that anymore.
Yeah, I'm familiar with any type of. My family currently has a relative in assisted living, and yeah, it's legit, so to speak, expense.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to make it so that they're living within their own means.
Right.
Mom and dad can pitch in if they want, but it's got to be their money, how much they come to the table with, and because mom and dad are not always going to be there. When mom and dad can no longer help provide for them or are no longer here, what happens to this individual? So this is a forever home. We're not going to tell you that you can't live here anymore because you have different needs. We want to be able to grow our organization and our services to meet everyone's needs. I think the only thing that we would say we probably wouldn't be able to facilitate would be if someone in their later years had some kind of memory care issue where they would need, a safer environment, and more help than what
we have a relative. The relative I'm talking about is in a memory care unit, and it's a whole different level of
right, and so
of assistance.
So but as long as they are able, we want to be able to provide for them, and in constructing this community, we've thought about everything, even as far as making the whole community ADA compliant, accessible.
Right.
Accessible housing is a big issue for our community as well. The older they get, the more mobility issues they have, or and we even have some individuals that are wheelchair bound, and so we want to be able to say, okay, well, Joey lives in this neighborhood and he wants to go visit David. Well, Joey's in a wheelchair. Can he go into David's house? Well, yeah, because every house is accessible,
So you're looking ahead, within the 5 years has passed, everything has come to fruition on your plans. And what does it look like? How many, a 10 to 15 acre, how many people could be served there? Because I'm obviously I'm a total novice. I have no concept of this. That's why we have people like you who are in the know to discuss these things. How many people are being served, and what does that look like?
So I recently just had the opportunity to go visit another co-housing community in Durham, and it's called Village Hearth, and it's an LGBTQ community for seniors.
Okay.
And had a wonderful conversation, was able to see how they built theirs. Okay. And they have 15 acres, but they only use 5 acres for the housing itself. They have 28 units on those 5 acres. Okay. And the way that we envision this is that if we had 10 to 15 acres, we could probably put about 30 to 40 units on part of that land. But we also want to be able to have recreational activities for them. Yeah. So, and then work.
You don't want brick and mortar on all 15 acres.
Right, exactly. Right. We don't want it to be a huge neighborhood, because also, we got to keep it small, because we want them to be able to know each other and be able to have relationships, in their community. If you get too big, if it becomes like a big apartment complex, you don't know everybody that lives in a 400-unit apartment complex,
Sure.
So we want to keep it small, probably about 40 individuals, and we want it to be people in the area. So we don't want someone in Raleigh to be able to say, well, I want my child to live here, because that family in Raleigh is going to have a harder time coming
Sure.
to the community, getting involved, volunteering, or just the fact of picking up their person and taking them out to dinner or having them come
Right.
and visit. It's got to be a local thing for our community here locally. And then we want to also be able to have areas where we can partner with Special Olympics. So one of the things that Special Olympics struggles with is that they have to find facilities that will let them have their practices.
Okay.
And sometimes they have to pay for those facilities, and so that drains their budget. And so we want to be able to provide, if we have a field where they could do their soccer practices, we want to be able to provide those facilities for other organizations as well.
Okay.
So that's where the land comes into mind. We don't want to just have enough land to put a bunch of houses on. It's got to be an area where they are going to have opportunities for recreation and for work. So gardening,
Sure.
gardening comes into play with them being able to grow their own food.
Somewhat self-sustaining.
Sustaining,
Yep.
yeah, but also being able to have a job where, if we have an abundance of produce and we don't need that much, they could go and sell it at the farmer's market.
Sure.
So everything has a reason
A
why.
purpose.
Yeah, and so that's why, 10 to 15 acres sounds like a good amount of space for us.
So if you had to, well, let me ask, what's next? Because I'm afraid you and I could talk about this for the next 12 hours.
Yeah.
So what's next on the agenda? What are the needs today? And then we'll shift gears here in a minute before we
Right.
start to close out this episode. But you've shared so much. But what would be, somebody's listening and they say, I want to help Josette in this organization, or what's next? What's the biggest needs? And or is it what you just mentioned about realtors and?
Yeah. So we could always use people on our board.
Okay.
We have a great group of people that are involved. We actually just have a doctor in Texas who learned about us, and she is in the process of joining our board.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so this is, anybody who has an interest in it, but
Okay.
especially if you have any kind of building experience, any kind of construction, developing a neighborhood, that kind of experience, so we could really use you on our board. But even if you don't want to join the board, but you want to give us some guidance and assistance, we'd be happy to take that, whatever they can provide. We're looking for sponsorships, so
Okay.
you can sponsor a house or the community itself, or anything like that. Corporate sponsorships, donations, all of those things are the things that are going to help us be able to create this community and have, a lifelong place for our individuals
Right.
in Gaston County to be able to live.
So before we shift gears here briefly, is there anything I haven't asked that I should have asked you, or anything you want to share? But of course, because the main point, remember, is to bring recognition to the organization. And of course, before we finish, we'll make sure our listeners know where to find more information, website. I've seen you on social media.
Yeah.
If they want to donate, volunteer, whatever, we'll make
Exactly.
sure we get that before we're finished. But anything else
Yeah.
that I haven't asked?
Well, I just want to take a moment to talk about the statistics of
Okay.
our community and the people that we plan to serve. According to the American Community Survey, North Carolina has 13.5% of its residents have a disability.
Okay.
And so by disability, we're talking about people with hearing, vision, cognitive, ambulatory, self-care, and independent living
Okay.
disabilities. So those are all the different kinds of disabilities that are specified under the Americans with Disabilities Act. in Gaston County, there's almost 228,000 people that live in Gaston County.
Okay.
And of those, that number of residents, we have 15.6 residents that live with a disability, one of those disabilities.
So a higher percentage than the state.
Higher percentage than the state.
Okay.
And that is
That's
roughly.
for a novice, that sounds high to me.
Yeah, it
So
is.
it's about but the whole point of education, right?
Right. And so that's roughly about 35,000 people
Wow.
in Gaston County that have one of those 5 types of disabilities. The ones that we are focusing on in our organization are the cognitive and independent living disabilities.
Community, disabilities, yeah.
And that's roughly about 2,500 people with each that have that cognitive or independent living disability. And so, and of course, some of these people could have another disability. So you could have a cognitive disability and you could have an ambulatory disability. So it's not, so it's not strictly one or the other or just,
Understood.
Yep.
So an independent disability is someone who would have trouble living on their own, who would not be able to maybe go buy their own groceries, either because of, they're not able to drive. They might not understand what they need to buy, or, they may spend all their money on junk food and not, real food, or, so they may need help going to the doctor because they might not understand what a doctor is trying to tell them.
Right.
So those are independent living disabilities. Cognitive disability is things you have problems with your memory or problem solving, attention. You have trouble reading, writing, comprehending math and money, and so those are the kinds of disabilities that we're kind of focused on.
Sure.
So, in Gaston County, if you have 15.6% of your population has a disability, and that's a lot of people.
It is,
and a lot of people that are falling through the cracks. We do have some great services, and we have some great group homes or services, providers that provide group homes.
Okay.
But group homes only are very hard to get into, first of all. So there's a waiting list. But you may be next on the waiting list, but you may not get that next space because the group home may be, a group home of 30 to 40-year-old women, and you're an 18-year-old man.
Got you.
You're not the right fit. So you
not the right demographic.
Right. You're not the right person to fit in with that group home. So that in itself is another, problem. And also
another barrier, so to speak.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And group homes are limiting in their individuals being able to make their own decisions. So decisions are made, we're doing this today, or we're doing that today. So where's the voice in the individual? So does the individual get to choose, well, do I want to go bowling or do I want to stay home?
Is it fair to say, sorry to interrupt, is it fair to say one big difference about your concept versus that is just the level of independence?
Level of independence, but also freedom of choice.
Gotcha.
And being able to have their voice heard.
Understood.
So we want to be able to provide a place where they can choose to be part of the group activity or stay home and have their own dinner, or do they come together and decide for themselves what activities they're going to have that month. When are they going to celebrate birthdays? When are they going to, it's Mother's Day coming up. What are we going to do for moms? Are we going to have a cookout for moms? All of those things that we do on a regular basis, that we do every day for ourselves.
Sure.
We want them to be able to do that as well.
Absolutely.
We want them to be able to say, hey,
we're going to have a Valentine's Day dance, and let's invite, our friends that maybe don't live here, but that are part of Special Olympics or, the Fireflies,
Yeah.
So, those are the kinds of things that we envision. We envision them being able to have their own home, but also the ability to voice their concerns, voice their opinions, make decisions for themselves, be able to have all of those things that we take for granted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think before we started recording, I mentioned kind of some of the stuff I've learned through these 90 episodes. So that's a good example. I mean, 15.6% sounds high, but then you say 30-some thousand. I mean, that puts a different perspective on it. And then, 2,500. So anyway, it's just a little, what's the word? A little humbling to hear those numbers and just realize the impact and the need that
the need
you guys are trying to serve.
And we're, when we talk about, just with the cognitive and independent living disability, someone who classified as that is roughly about almost 3,000 people in the county with that designation. But we're only talking about 40 people, that we could serve in our community. So, I mean, it's barely making a dent in the issue. But I think if we can make this happen here in Gaston County, then we could be the model for other counties, or even for, legislation and policy changes. We want them to, we want our government to be able to say, all right, we're not doing enough for them. There's this gap that needs to be filled, and this is a good model. This is a good option for us to be able to provide housing for all of these, 13.5% in North Carolina.
Well, I like the fact that you're thinking big, right? That's how big things are accomplished.
Yeah.
And it's when a group of people decide, we're going to do this, and don't stand in our way, so to speak.
We want Gaston County to be, the leader in changing the way individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities live. I mean, how great would that be?
It would be great, yeah. Just another thing to talk about why Gaston County is such a great place, right? Which is the point of why we're speaking today. So, we talk about some pretty, I don't want to say heavy. I don't want to say this is a heavy topic, but we've these 90 episodes. A lot of these topics are heavy. That's why we throw in these little. We're going to shift gears briefly, and talk. And we got these questions that we like to throw in to maybe lighten the mood sometimes a little bit here. And this is really. And we'll come back and finish up to make sure our listeners know how to get in touch with you guys. But Josette, this is really what your family, this is what everybody wants to know about you, right?
Yeah.
All right. And we're going to call this this is Josette's first ever podcast, speed round of questions.
All right.
I come up with a different name every time.
Great.
All right. So what is your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
Black cherry.
Black cherry. That's a pretty common answer.
Yeah.
Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Cheerwine, but I do love a Sundrop if it's made like, do you know what a setup is?
A setup?
A setup.
No.
Okay. I think this is a Lincoln County thing because I grew up in Lincolnton.
We won't hold that against you.
I know. But I did move to Gaston County, so a setup is a Sundrop with maraschino cherries and the cherry juice in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
I didn't know it was called that, but I've seen that.
That's what Lincoln County,
okay.
Or people in Lincoln County call it.
So in other words, you're choosing both answers. So you're cheating. You're cheating on that one.
I'm not cheating.
How about a favorite local restaurant?
Oh my gosh, I love Viva Takis.
Oh, okay.
And of course, Webb Custom Kitchen.
Yeah, Webb Custom is great, isn't it?
And then Bip Bop.
I'm not familiar with that.
That one is off. It's a new Vietnamese restaurant off of Union Road.
Huh.
It's
okay.
delicious.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a first. I don't think we've had that one before. And then again, you chose 3 when I asked for 1.
I know.
That's just how you roll, apparently.
I'm a rule breaker.
How about favorite local outside activity or favorite park or something here around the area?
I'm going to have 3 again. No. My favorite park is George Poston Park.
Oh, yeah, Poston's great. Yeah.
They have the dog park there. Of course, I take my dog over there. But they also have the mountain biking trails. And
Oh, yeah, it's a great park.
yeah.
I'm over there occasionally.
Yeah. And
Both my daughters played soccer, so we
Yeah.
get a lot of time over
Yeah,
there. Some of
and
the fields. And,
Nathan played baseball there too. So
oh, yeah, that's cool.
and Warlick YMCA.
YMCA is great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact,
I know.
on the wall there, we were
Yeah.
involved with that project.
Yeah, I love there, and just I know this is more than one, but they are so great with Nathan.
Oh, yeah?
Nathan goes over there and plays basketball, and everybody knows him, and everybody's so
Oh,
kind
well,
to
that's
him.
great.
And
Good to hear.
We're at the grocery store, and he'll see somebody from the Y, and they are like, "Hey, Nathan, how are you doing? You going to play basketball?" And it's so
Good.
great. Like,
Well, that's what I mean. I think that's my general experience in Gaston County, right?
Yeah,
is
it is.
the people like that. So,
Yeah.
here's my question that I ask everyone, and there's only one correct answer: UNC, Duke, or NC State?
Not Duke. Let's just say that.
Well, that's better than the alternative potentially, and I would kind of agree with that. I'm not sure why Duke is even in North Carolina, frankly.
Yeah.
But again, so you've skipped that one basically, and you've answered multiple answers for the other one. So
Yes, I know.
what is something very few people know about you?
I guess I like to break rules.
Well, that's pretty obvious. So I think I'm going to guess that everybody already knows that.
Yeah.
So that's not an acceptable answer.
Well, I think if you know me, you know this about me. But if you don't know me, you probably wouldn't know that I'm an immigrant.
Okay.
I came here from Costa Rica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how long has that been?
47 years.
Oh.
So well, no, 40 years because I'm not.
You know, say you came here before you were born?
Before I was born. No, I came here at 7 years old, so
Okay.
I've been here 40 years. Yeah,
very good.
So, but this is home.
How about a book or blog or podcast you could share for our listeners
Yeah.
that might be worth them checking out?
Sorry, you're about to drink your drink.
You just cut me off. Dang, Naomi.
Not the ice.
I'm being quiet with the ice. Dang.
Well, I'm currently.
That's what I deal with at GSM every day.
Did you hear the ice?
No?
I heard the ice. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So I'm currently reading a book, and it's a work assignment, but it's actually really good. It's called Fish, and it's about the.
I'm familiar with that.
You know the.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
a good
little
book.
book, but it's got some good things in it about how to change your mindset, change your attitude.
It's a good business related
it's
type book.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or teams or anything related
Yeah.
to work. Yeah.
It kind of came about the fish market in Seattle
Yep.
and how they changed their.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been
Yeah.
a long time since I
Yeah.
checked that one out. No, I appreciate that. That's good. So again, I appreciate you indulging us on those Gaston County questions. So again, remember this is we're going to finish up with just a couple more questions here. Besides the Special Needs Community Initiative and the work you guys are doing, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
The people.
You've touched on a couple of reasons why related to that already.
Yeah, just like people, they know Nathan, and everywhere we go, it's like, they're just very friendly, and I mean every time we've gotten involved in something, the people is just what makes Gaston County great. I mean, just the amount of dedication and support that the people give to our community is wonderful, and and how they're always willing to help. Always
absolutely,
always wanting to pitch a helping hand. When we go around and ask for donations for our silent auction, people are just very willing to give, and I think that's what makes Gaston County great.
Oh, very good. I appreciate that. So, Josette, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Gosh, I think I would tell myself to use my voice.
Okay.
This is I was really shy growing up, and I would just kind of sit back and let things happen. The older I've gotten, and having my older son is part of the LGBTQ community.
Okay.
And and then I have Nathan, who has Down syndrome, and by having these two wonderful children that I have and that I've been blessed with, it's made me become more of an advocate for these communities and for anyone who's at a disadvantage. And so I think I would tell my younger self to use my voice to help make a difference.
Yeah, when we're younger, a couple of things. It seems like when I was 20, remembering what was the point? I'm only 20. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Or lack of confidence or whatever.
Lack of confidence, and also like not wanting to ruffle any feathers.
Or I was too worried about what people think.
What people thought,
At 52, I am much less concerned with that than I was at 20.
I really don't care about that anymore. I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
No, I understand, but I know what you mean.
If there's something important you need to say it.
Well, I think I've been involved with the community in a lot of different ways for 20 plus years now, and projects like what you were doing and what you're involved with, or anything that's making an impact. If you're not ruffling some feathers, it might not be big enough.
Yeah.
I have learned that or also maybe if people who are upset with it, it depends on if the right people are upset with it, you miit be doing the right thing.
That's true. Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that. So, Josette, this has been really good. And again, just to reiterate, the main point here is to bring awareness to the organization, but in the things that you're trying to do. And obviously this big, in the business world, we call it the BHAG, right? This big, hairy, audacious goal. And it's great to hear you talk about it. So where can our listeners go to learn more, volunteer, get involved, donate, or just anything and everything you mind sharing?
Yeah, so we're, of course, on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us there, Special Needs Community Initiative. And you can visit our website, and our website has, under our Give page, it has all of the options of how you can help. And then we also have a resource page. So if you are
I saw the resource page. There was a lot of organizations and things on there.
Yeah, and that's been something new that we've done this year, because we're trying to connect our families or other organizations to people that are or organizations that help our community. And so if you are an organization that provides a service for individuals with disabilities, you can go on our website. It's www.snci-nc.org.
Yep.
And you can fill out our form, and you'll be put on as a resource on our resource page. And what it does is it has a short statement about your organization, your contact information, and a link to your website. Yep. So it links you directly to your website.
And there were several past guests and maybe a couple of future guests on our podcast too on that page.
I mean, it's wonderful because there's so many other organizations that are like, I'm always trying to figure out how to connect, and I think this is a great way for the community to be able to connect with each other.
Absolutely. So, any last words of wisdom or anything you'd like to share before we close this episode out?
I just want to say that I think that our young adults with disabilities deserve more. They deserve a great life. And I think parents deserve to be able to have a place where their child can live and thrive and have all of those things that you know, when you have a baby and you have all these hopes and dreams for this child, and then they tell you that this child has a disability, and then you find yourself thinking, oh, they're not going to be able to do this or that. But yes, they can. I think they can. I think that with the help of the community, with the help of parents, with the, you know, with this support system that we're trying to create, I think they can live that life that we
Sure.
dreamed about when they were babies, you know. And so I hope that your listeners will take a moment to reach out and to see how they can help. Because this is not just about helping 40 individuals in Gaston County. This is about changing how all of these individuals in North Carolina and hopefully all of the U.S. how they can live, you know, these amazing lives that we dream about.
That's well said. I normally I guess I'll do a quote and thought for the week and a book recommendation, but I'm not sure I should try to follow that. That's very well said, Josette. And, you know, it's inspirational. One thing I've really enjoyed about being involved with this Gaston's Great podcast is all the advocacy, the people like yourself who are advocating for, in this particular case, maybe, you know, a marginalized section of our, you know, our population. Yeah. And so it's great to hear that. And the book I picked this week is, the title is not great. It's called Why Leaders Fail by Mary Kelly and Peter Stark. But it's really about, I guess the title is kind of negative, but the book is out how to be a better leader. And I happened to just recently finish this book, and a lot of things that Josette has described is in that book about the work that you're doing. You know, it takes somebody stepping up and having some passion about something to get big things done in community. So I appreciate that. And then my quote for this week is it's kind of related maybe to some of the things we would talk about. And it's attributed to John Lennon, but I'm not sure he's actually the one that said this, but I couldn't find anything to contradict that. But the quote is, "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." So you got to be, in other words, go take the action, right? Or we can sit here and plan for the future forever, and all of a sudden, you know, we're 70 years old and life has happened, and those, right, you know, those big things that we wanted to do are not going to happen. So I do like that concept, though, that you know, don't wait, which is similar to kind of what you're talking about. You know, you're in maybe even when we were 20 and we waited on something maybe we shouldn't have.
Well, even with this community, you know, if we wait for the government or another organization to figure it out, you know, our kids are like, there's a need now. And all of these individuals that are depending on something to change, you know. And so we have to do something about it.
Yeah, and I would definitely encourage people not to wait on the government for anything.
Yeah.
It might be. Yeah. It's a good chance we're going to be let down if we do that. Well, Josette, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I will be really paying attention and really looking forward to seeing what happens over the next few years with what you guys are trying to do. And listen, if there's anything that we can do here to help with, I'm involved in a lot of organizations myself as well, and so maybe there's something that we can even collaborate on. So that'd be exciting. Yeah. All right, so our listeners out there, I will never drink water again on the podcast because Naomi is dropping my mic every time I do that. Dang. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. So please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We are always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at our website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. And apparently, giving us a good 5-star rating helps the podcast get noticed. If it's less than a 5, please don't leave a rating. Thanks again to Josette for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Naomi Hunt and Amy Anderson from GSM Services and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.